Infinite Frontier, issue 1, Joshua Williamson and Zermanico. Start of the, well, I mean, it is a start. I mean, there was an issue 0, but the issue 0 was more like a collection of, prologue things for various books rather than just this one. So,
I'm going to say right now, the most exciting thing in this book was the first panel.
Oh, I disagree.
No. When it opens with Worlds Will Live, and you're like, oh, okay, that's the story we're setting up here. Yeah,
of course. But I like to think this whole book was exciting. But
no, the whole book's good. But that's the most exciting.
As a continuity nerd, seeing stuff being pulled in from the rest of the DCU, that's very exciting because I felt over the past, Metal notwithstanding, everything's been kind of self-contained. We haven't had these big, huge stories, which is kind of nice. So when one does happen, it feels special. So to hear them, to hear people talking about, A-Day in Gotham and whatnot, like that's really cool in the pages of this book. Wasn't expecting that.
It feels nestled in current continuity for sure.
Yeah. Also, on a bit of the hyperbolic side, can Zermanico just draw everything from now on, please? Because
I definitely wanted to draw more Lantern stuff.
Yeah, I love Zermanico's art.
I do as well, but in particular, he draws a construct of a train, and as it comes through, it's hitting someone. It says "Wham" on the front of the train, and that effect is fantastic. I want more of that stuff in my Green Lanterns.
Yep.
So yeah, the book starts with a rocket ship, not unlike Superman's, crash landing on Earth, although not the main Earth, as we'll very quickly find out.
We'll find out, yeah.
But when the ship opens up, it's actually a version of Batman that is inside. Not a baby Batman, a full Batman.
No.
And it's seemingly Flashpoint Batman.
It looks Flashpoint-esque. Yeah, it looks Flashpoint-esque.
Well, you guys didn't automatically get that was Flashpoint Batman?
I did, yeah. Like,
well, no,
the red logo was like... Last I remember a Flashpoint Batman, though, he was not in a great place.
Yeah, it looks Flashpoint-esque, but I wasn't necessarily just assuming it was Flashpoint Batman. There was still room for swerves and interpretations at this point.
But I also love that the kindly couple that find him automatically go, "That's not our Batman," and I was like, "Okay, this is DC. This is what they do well." That was great.
And as soon as they say called Calvin, I'm like, "Oh, okay, we're on Earth 23." Before we even get to the bottom, it's like, "Okay, I know where we are."
Yep.
Yeah, it establishes itself very quickly. It's kind of the focal mystery. I kind of dig. Obviously, there's a lot of kind of crisisy talk in the next couple of pages, but it's basically just taking something from JSA. And one of the early things in the JSA run from Johns was the extant stuff and like the JSA having to fight him. So kind of starting kind of effectively feels like the first proper like Alan Scott included story and a form of the JSA existing in present day DC in a long time, starting with kind of just the end of like a fight with Extant, as if he was up to no good again. Yeah, we've been here, we've done this before. You don't have to see the whole thing. But
I do love what gets you there. It's the map of the multiverse, and then it pinpoints on Earth 0, right? And then you see the New Justice satellite. I just like how it zooms in on this to the point where you have Extant there. It's really good visual storytelling.
Yeah. So this is kind of like the book's kind of in sections, I would say. We have this stuff with Alan where he meets Obsidian. They're talking about Jade a little bit. They're not sure where she is. She's not shown up for their meeting. And they're referring to things that have came up recently. They talk about Dark Knight's death metal a little bit. They talk about Alan coming out. So all the stuff that we have been reading in recent, these little stories that have been popping up here or there in various anthology books, all relevant, all in continuity. You feel a little bit rewarded for keeping up with everything to an extent. But as they're going to the old JSA headquarters, there was a green explosion, which makes them freak out a little bit because they think Jade might be inside, and then questions where she is. From there, we cut to Paris, and I live for this shit. I don't know why, but for some reason, like going back to like Bones and him sort of running the DEO, and like and in particular here recruiting Chase to like come and like help run it. And
you like Director Bones like I like Guy Gardner. Instantly, you're happy when you see him. You know.
I mean, I would never want. I would never want to read a Bones book, though. I would never want a book that's about
That's
him.
because he hasn't got the charisma of Guy Gardner that can carry a book.
Yes, he has some. I agree.
But I see. No, that's all. You can make the argument that's all Guy Gardner has is charisma, and that's part of the problem. But with Bones, I like him. But like when you're like, oh, this is the stuff I really like. Him trying to recruit Chase back to the DEO. I get it.
He's just such a, I don't know, there's a very pulpy quality to his character and just his place in the DC universe that just appeals to me for some reason.
Well, and I love that how she talks to him. You know, he's like, do you remember what it was like before the world got so weird? She's like, says the man with a skull for her face.
I mean, the big thing, there's two big things about this scene. One is that he shows her something that effectively, because I don't see this as a blackmail thing, because I think you could read it that way, but I think this feels like, no, he's shown her something that is convincing her she has to get involved because it's such a big deal or it's so scary or whatever. That's how I read her reaction of, oh shit.
As did I, because we know of her with the DEO and stuff. So whatever it is, like she's like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. However, what he showed her automatically pulled her in, so much to the fact that she didn't want the rest of her dessert.
Yeah.
Right? She's like, I'm not hungry anymore. So it's big. I also like to, and this is part of the, I feel like Checkmate coming out late because that was supposed to be out last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll get that there, that all of these organizations are gone, but now Bones is starting this up.
Yeah, he's basically restarting the DEO.
Right. Which I like because now that's a fresh start with the DEO and what it can be and stuff.
I think if you've been starting to read DC recently, or even just as recent as the start of Rebirth, which is, when we started the podcast, this is kind of a relatively nice thing to just sort of, rather than having all this weird continuity, like, oh, it's a fairly fresh kickoff. The other big thing in this scene, though, that I think is very important, is the idea that at least a good portion of the general public now know what a multiverse is, and now are aware that there's multiverse shenanigans going on, and even are aware that in some capacity that reality has at some point been reset, and can perhaps even remember elements. And maybe that's why it's spreading, because we get characters later who seem to be more aware than others. Others just think it's a conspiracy, they think it sounds crazy, but some characters seem to have like a feeling, like they can actually kind of sense it.
Yeah. Well, and I love, and this is Williamson knowing the characters so well, when Bones' point of view is, people shouldn't even know a multiverse exists. Of course, that's what a shady government guy would think, right? Like, he has secrets. That's what he deals in. So, and now the fact that it is, what problems does that lead to? So the fact that he seeded that here, and then we get the whole diner scene later, like that Pete's talking about there.
Because I don't remember this, like, maybe some civilians have become aware of it in the past, but I don't remember any of these crisis-y books ever kind of focusing on the idea that the general public are aware of.
Well, I mean, think about it. Like, worlds will die. That's the Infinite Crisis thing. Those are worlds of people. So, you never think about that on the micro level. It's always the macro superhero. What does this mean for that? And
yeah, so then we go to Justice Incarnate, where Thomas Wayne wakes up after being knocked out for a bit. He's not very happy to see anyone. It's not until...
He does not want the delicious carrot juice, apparently.
No, he does not want Captain Carrot near him, period.
No.
To be fair, Zamanico makes Captain Carrot look scarier than I've ever seen him before.
Yeah, but and I like that, though, just because this Flashpoint Batman has never ran into Captain Carrot. So when he wakes up, this gigantic
demented
rabbit
thing,
is staring at him in the face, and he goes, "Whoa, friend!" Just as I like his whole vibe here.
He's not into the carrot juice, but I think he is fond of his lobster, just for the record. So yeah, Calvin shows up, President Superman, and kind of explains who they are a little bit. And this verse is a nice little introduction as well. If you haven't read the previous stuff to set up this team, here, Justice Incarnate. We're here to police the multiverse stuff that's going on. And Yeah, I actually really liked how this scene ended because Thomas Wayne says, "I need to speak to the Flash," and he says, "Which one?" And he's like, "Barry Allen," and then there's just that comedy beat pause, and then goes, "Which one?"
Which one? Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Which actually does transition neatly into a Barry scene, where Barry is trying to experiment, basically to get to one of the two new planets, right? Earth Omega, as he calls it,
Right.
later on here, and he basically he's like, oh, if I jump through all these different multiverses very quickly and play with my vibration, I should be able to get there somehow. And sure enough, he does,
Yeah.
and he notes that this Earth Omega is kind of strange in that it doesn't seem to have a frequency. It doesn't have one.
There is no vibration.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
obviously that's an important plot point, and he finds the dead bodies, of course, that Darkseid left behind at the end of the Zero issue. So
The quintessence.
yes, which I have
You
to,
say bodies more.
well, yeah, the
Yeah.
the
Desiccated
clothes,
husks.
the clothes. Well, yeah, there's kind of bodies still.
There is, but you know, bodies is being generous still, given the state of them.
Yeah, I have to admit, I kind of forgot the end of that Zero issue until this page where I saw all the corpses, and I went,
You don't remember us
oh,
talking
yeah.
about the quintessence, but there's 6 of them. So it's not quite a quintessence.
I mean, vaguely now, but I mean, Matt, this was
Yeah.
like 3 months ago.
Barry
Oh,
doesn't
come on.
question that.
No.
No. But Barry has no thoughts on the matter. He's just wondering what the hell happened here. Who did this? Who was powerful enough to kill these effective gods? And then something weird happens where it's like he flashes through different past versions of the Flash, different continuity. You know, the old art style, the more New 52 one, eventually sort of in present day, and then out walks our modern version of Psycho Pirate.
Yeah, with a
With it-
big old Omega symbol on him.
Yeah.
The black and the white, like we saw on Darkseid at the end of that Zero issue.
Yeah, definitely teasing some weirdly big stuff. And obviously, yeah, the ties between Psycho Pirate and Flash, Barry specifically, and the original
Yep.
Crisis, you know, can't be lost on us here. There's definitely some callbacks to that. This is definitely something that's been written from someone who's grown up with those crises in their mind and is harkening back to the very original one. So definitely not surprising. And it kind of teases at the end that, you know, Psycho Pirate's got someone else to go and find. Like, he's not here to torture the Flash. You know, the voice, presumably Darkseid. I mean, it could swerve us and say it's someone else, but at least right now we'd assume this is Darkseid that's speaking to him.
I would, with the Omega and the lettering of it.
Yeah. And we cut to this diner, and of course one of the big reveals in the Zero issue was that Roy was alive, and somehow, like, there was no explanation, he was just around. We assumed, oh, death metal, reset reality, things came back, whatever.
We got a reason now at the end of this scene.
Well, you say that as if we understand it completely. I wouldn't say we do. Yeah.
Not saying I understand it, but it makes more sense than just, let's just say finger snap back alive. There's more layers to it.
Sure.
And I was not expecting that.
Yeah. Well, a lot of this scene focuses on these side characters who are basically debating the existence of a multiverse. This other stranger overhears the conversation and gets in and defends the woman who's saying that there's a multiverse. And Roy is just drinking some coffee and just kind of smirking to himself as he listens to this. But there's one guy who's, bit of a dick and kind of gets really aggressive with it.
And I can't say that the last year didn't have some influence on this dude's vibe.
For sure. This is someone who's yelling at someone for wearing a mask. You can feel it in your veins. Yeah,
but when you think about it too, of course, in a world of superheroes, there are going to be the people that, despite seeing Superman flying, be like, Superman's not real. I was like, well, he just flew through here. No, that's conspiracy. And you're just like, all right, dude, I don't have time for you. So I like seeing this character represented here.
Yeah, and this is, Roy steps in a little bit, but then, of course, there's a big explosion at the wall, and we have these characters coming in looking for him, and
this character, Extract. Terrible name.
Extract, yes. And then there's a bit of a fight, obviously. Some blasts, he's saving civilians. But then there's this insane transition where she has Roy pinned down, she's got him at gunpoint, and then the very next page, you just see this giant pure black fist punch this character out of the roof of the building, out of this diner. And then punches all the again, we don't see him yet. We don't see what Roy looks like here, but it's keeping him all off panel. It's all just all the henchmen flying through windows and walls and whatever. And then the final page reveal is I'm going to call this a black and white lantern outfit on Roy, where there's lantern constructs of all of his past versions of, you know, your Teen Titans Roy, your Arsenal, whatever, right? And I say black and white because the symbol's more black lantern style, right? But
however, the energy around him
is white, yeah.
Right. Which then makes me think this is like a cheat that he's got, right? He was dead, but it's almost like the Black Lantern energy and the White Lantern energy are pushing at him, and that's what's brought him back. How he has access to this, who knows? But I'm here for it.
Did anyone else think it was weird him kind of questioning it himself? Like, what have you gotten yourself into now? Like, just I don't know, just the actual dialogue of it felt weird. Like, he had no idea he was this lantern.
I don't think he had an idea he was the lantern, though.
Which is fine. But I just think the actual construction of the dialogue of him just kind of standing there asking himself, "What have you gotten into now?"
Well, I like because when he stirs away, he goes, "Whoever you are, thanks for the save." So yeah, he definitely doesn't know, you know. So I like, you know, what did he just pull himself up out of the grave one day and dust himself off? You know, did he? You know, is this like a Jason Todd scenario?
I mean, I get the impression he didn't know how he was back. He just was.
He was, yeah, that's what I mean. Because
I guess Matt says, what's his first memory of being back? Was he just there, or does he remember coming back to life? Like, does he remember, like, say, getting out of the grave?
Does he even know he was dead?
I think he knows. I think he knows that he died. I think that's why he's not contacted anyone. I think that's why he's keeping his distance, because he, you know, of the shared history with how it ended with Wally, everything else. I think he knows his past. He does know his past. But I mean, if I was to guess, I would say he just popped into existence. He didn't like dig his way out of a grave or anything weird like that. But I mean,
I would have agreed before this reveal, but then I'm thinking, like, you know, black ring energy. That's very much digging yourself out of a grave, right?
Yeah. Well, and the whole life, the whole live.
I mean,
right? Just the white.
Assuming someone didn't dig him up first.
Right, and that's what I mean.
Possible.
Like the Jason Todd scenario. Is this because it reset himself, or the whole universe reset? Right, and that's how we get him, because that's how they explained Jason Todd originally. You know, that it was Superboy Prime punching at reality.
Which I think has all been retconned. It was just they threw him in a
Lazarus. Well, now it's Lazarus Pit. Right, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. So like, here, but they're also talking about people being rebooted, and that's maybe why some people remember and why some don't. That was in the diner scene. That's kind of the context there. So who knows? But yeah, Roy with this lantern energy, because I don't want to say it's black or white lantern. He's like in between.
Yeah, I would say it's both. Because I don't think that's the comparison with that, and then the idea that we have two planets that are kind of like you know, a pair. I don't think it's an accident.
Alpha and Omega, which are first and last.
One's called the Elseworld, but yeah, I mean,
well, the Elseworld, right?
Yeah. But like the idea that we have like two sides of the same coin, effectively, and that's maybe a theme that's going to keep showing up here. So the idea that we have this black and white lantern where both energies are kind of working or coexisting, like life and death do work together, and they kind of do. Of course they do.
Well, in life and death, and if dark side represents nothingness, right? And that, I mean, life and death would have to work together, because what is nothingness? Nothingness isn't death.
And to go back to Psycho Pirate's costume, his costume was black and white. Like, it was a black and white outfit. Right.
And then who we think is dark side, but who knows? Psycho Pirate tells Barry, we're on the same side this time.
Yeah, he does, and I kind of believe him, oddly.
Yeah. So if this is what, you know, again, we want to think that it's dark side with what looks like the Omega effect and the lettering, but who's to say that it is? And we thought kind of zombie dark side was the villain, but what if he's not?
I think the only things we can really say for certainty right now is that the not just because it leads into this scene with the you have to go find someone, but the color scheme with him, the color scheme with Psycho Pirate says that he is definitely who Psycho Pirate's looking for. So there is a connection between whatever they're doing and what he is and how he became this. Or maybe it's not so much how he became this, but because of he's happened to become this, he's now going to be very important in whatever is going to happen going forward, whatever it may be. But everything else is pure speculation at this point until we get the next issue.
Also, when Extract comes out, she seems out of sync, like in between vibrations. Right, like a digital effect, like we saw in Mr. Miracle. So that's interesting. So wherever she's from, it's not exactly.
Yeah, I think in that case, it's probably just that she's coming from another Earth, another another universe, and that's probably just what it's representing.
Probably,
or even just teleporting, even perhaps.
Yeah.
You know, what I'm saying is, I don't think it's going to have all of the important symbolism that Mr. Miracle had with its effect.
No. Because there's a point where it shows her perspective looking at Roy, and it's filtered through that same effect, and Roy's got like a bubble around him to like.
I mean, I suppose it is possible, given that, you know, we associate so many dark side things now with that Tom King book, that maybe they are intentionally using something from it to.
I don't actually mean like for Mr. Miracle. I'm just comparing it to that, where you could tell there's a disturbance somehow. Like if it was if this was a filmed thing or animated, the effect on her would stand out versus just in a comic where it's all kind of the same because it's that one dimension. So I don't necessarily mean Mr. Miracle. That was the only thing I could think of that I've seen anything like that, like the visual disturbance. You know, so like if we saw her, she would be glitching in and out or whatever.
I mean, she definitely, her and her group definitely seem like the sort of characters who are traveling through, different dimensions and, going wherever they need to go. So,
and so that diner comes up, Saint Tekla, and so I just looked up Saint Tekla, and I don't know if I can find anything, but it's got to be there. Like, I've read enough Williamson to know now he doesn't do things just because.
This is conspiracy theory, Matt. When it comes to these things, he loves to go down the rabbit hole.
So
I'm going to Google every word they said in this scene right now.
You laugh, but this is how I take things in. So, but
I mean, dare I say it was a solid first issue that has me excited about what it's doing, where it's going, what the goal is. I like that it's got very different batches of characters. Roy feels very different, but also a nice return to form for a character who has been kind of shit on in recent years. Alan Scott and the JSA have been gone for so long that it's really nice to have him be a central character in one of the plot threads. And then Justice Incarnate is just a really wacky group of characters that are, again, not the mainstream batch. And I'm sure we'll see more of the mainstream batch, and even the one mainstream character we do have in this, which I'd say is Barry, he's used in a way to harken back to the original Crisis, so it's making it feel like it's a big part of, hopefully, something that we look at as the next step in DC's big, larger continuity, where we go, oh, this was the start, the true start of this phase of.
I do wonder what the
next.
We can look at all the previous crises and go, this is what they were fixing, this is what they were setting up. I wonder what it's going to be for this. Like, what is it? What is the outcome?
If I had to guess, it's a new, not necessarily a new status quo, but just going forward, it's setting the table, almost going back to what we were before New 52.
It's possible, because it's interesting in the sense that when we talk about these events, it's more about the outcome than it is the story itself. We can include like Flashpoint in that as well. I think it's safe to say it doesn't have the Crisis name, but
it effectively is.
Exactly. It's not about the story itself. Like, Flashpoint was a perfectly fine story, but it was the outcome that mattered. That's why it was remembered. That's why it has impact still now, seeing like Flashpoint and Batman. So I do wonder what they're going for with this.
Yeah, it definitely feels like Infinite Crisis before it. Like it's playing. There's a lot of balls in the air that Williamson is juggling. So you could tell he really likes the DC universe, right?
I suppose...
Like that's the vibe I get from seeing all of these different characters at play here. And I like to think that this came from an idea he had, not strictly just editorial. Like we have to reset the status quo.
Yeah, especially since
you know.
this is probably the least I felt they need to reset anything because
Yeah.
because in the recent months, like ever since we have gotten past Dark Knight's Death Metal, it has kind of felt like we have actually reached that balance of, oh, this feels like continuity is back and is important, and it feels like the world's shared again, but it still feels like people are doing their own new things and we're getting cool stories. And I've probably had a greater number of titles that I've been extremely happy with than I probably ever have reading single issue DC comics. So, I'm not sure what I even want them to fix, if anything. So, if anything, I would just hope that this is just the event that, while it's starting a little bit later, is more about just, oh, this is the start of Infinite Frontiers era, and this is the big event to go with it.
You don't want to be too worried that they're going to mess something up now and ruin what you've got, that you feel like it's in a good place.
Yeah, and
Well,
I have no reason to
fact
worry really
Good.
yet. There's nothing. There's no reason to be panicking yet because the current team that are in charge, that are making decisions, who are still relatively new. We only just got rid of Didio like a year ago. But Infinite Frontier is a very good issue 1 if you care about the larger DC scope of things and like basically any of the characters that are included in it. I think so. I mean, all three of us seem to be happy enough with it, and I mean, to put it in perspective, I like this more than issue 1s of the metal books, just to compare it to recent events.
Oh, I don't know if I'd go that far. I think I had more fun with those issues.
I think there's some high points that were crazy enough in those that I do remember quite fondly, such as the Invisible Chainsaw and whatever, but this I'm more excited about as an actual event, like a DC Comics event. It feels more right.
This might feel better overall as in terms of it being more important and being a quote unquote better story. I had more fun with reading Metal than I did this, for sure.
This doesn't feel like an event. Metal felt like an event, right? This feels like a solid story, right? Whereas Metal was like Snyder going, what big things? Can I have a Batman that's also a T-Rex? Yes. Can I have an invisible chainsaw? Yes. I don't think that's where we're going and stuff like this. I feel this is more pure continuity superhero stuff at play. And I think that's okay. I like the variants.
I do as well.
Yeah.
Sure. I would still call this an event for the record, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but this is not a big blockbuster.
It's lower key in comparison to the Metals, which were the last two events, right?
Yeah, and I'll always prefer that. I mean, because of this, kind of like Blackest Night, right? Like, Blackest Night felt like a big event, but, it was big and huge. But that, there's other stories I'm trying to think of off the top of my head, right? That are just solid stories that are also big.
It's funny how this arguably is bigger in scope than what Metal was at the start. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily by the end, but, those first issues of Metal where it's just, here's the Justice League doing some crazy shit. Whereas this is, no, JSA, intermultiversal Justice Leagues, Flashpoint Batman, all these objectively big things that are spanning with quite a lot of stuff in comparison to, hey, it's Justice League. Yeah, it doesn't feel as grandiose as Metal did. Or they went in with just like, no, we're big and bombastic, and it was the summer blockbuster. Whereas this doesn't have that feeling, even though it is definitely an event still.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Matt, what are you rating that?
This is a 9. Straight out the gate.
Connor?
That is extreme. I'm going to 7.5. I think it's pretty good.
Where do I fit into? I'll go with 8.5. I'm much closer to Matt than I am Connor, for sure.
This is the last thing I read this week, and I was very happy because I feel like if this was one of the first things I read, it would have kind of killed the rest of the books for me.
It was the first thing I read. Whenever there's a new event, it's always the first thing I read, unless there's a lead-in book.
Yeah, it was the first thing I read, too.